I would like to share that last week I was more mindful many more times than I had been in the previous months. I think a lot of it had to do with the class and a reminder to come to the present moment, even though I do start my day reminding myself to do my best to be present. And that's my daily focus, is to be mindful and present. And this class helped me do that even more times throughout the day, and listen and notice, notice my emotions, and be present, do my best not to worry about the future or think too much and dwell in the past. And that brings us to some breathing exercises, which can help people with who are living with paralysis, and people who are not living with paralysis. When we notice our breath and mindfully breathe, then that naturally relaxes the mind. The brain makes a substance called dopamine and helps us relax. And it decreases the stress response, the fight, flight, or freeze response. And there are other breathing techniques that can also stimulate the parasympathetic response, which helps us further relax, especially stimulating the vagus nerve, or what the author of My Grandmother's Hands is named Resna. I don't recall the last name, but he calls the vagus nerve the soul nerve. And I'll go over a couple of techniques that can help stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system and relax and calm the mind. And one is called diaphragmatic breathing. And for those of you who are able, you can put your hand on your belly. And if you are unable to do that, you can visualize your hand on your belly and do your best to breathe in and expand your belly more than your chest. Breathe in and expand your belly. Feel the belly rise as you breathe in and fall as you breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And that's a technique called belly breathing. Another useful breathing technique is feeling the expansion of your chest. So as you're able, put your hand on your chest or your heart and take a deep breath in and feel the expansion of your chest, and breathe out. And as you breathe in, feel the rise of your chest. And as you breathe out, the fall of your chest. Another thing that helps stimulate the soul nerve or the vagus nerve is to breathe out against pursed lips. So breathe in and breathe out against pursed lips. Breathe in and breathe out against pursed lips. And this one I use a lot because I can hide behind my pursed lips if I'm feeling stressed or uncomfortable with fear or anger or sadness, and I'm in conversation with someone and I'm triggered by the events that are occurring, then I could start to breathe out with pursed lips and pause rather than react to the situation. And one breathing technique that the Navy SEALs use is called 4-4-4. And this has been really difficult for me as I've been practicing it the last week. And it's breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and breathe out for 4. So let's try that. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. And some of you may find that calming. At first, when I started doing it, it was somewhat stressful for me. As I did it more and more, it became more calming for me, and I was able to do it more readily and in a relaxing way. And I think it's going to help me further increase my oxygenation and my breathing. And I, much of my diaphragm was paralyzed from my accident and took a long time for me to wean off the ventilator. So I still live with a partially paralyzed diaphragm. So all of these exercises are very important for me as I do my best to continue to work with my breath, even though sometimes it's not my primary anchor and I don't feel calm when I'm breathing. So in those moments, I open my eyes and I look around and I bring in sound as my primary anchor. And with that, I will invite you to close your eyes or have a slightly downward gaze. And take a few deep breaths. You may notice your breath with the coolness of the air through your nostrils on the in-breath and the warmth of the air through your nostrils on the out-breath. You may notice your breath in the rise and fall of your chest or the rise and fall of your belly. Now bring attention to your touch points, and as you are able, notice where your body may be touching the ground or your chair, or your pillow, or your mat, or your bed. and notice any areas of tension in your body. Relax the muscles of your forehead. Relax the muscles around your eyes. Relax your jaw. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Now bring to mind a difficult situation that occurred in the last few days or week. This may be something that occurred at home with interactions with a friend or family, maybe something that occurred at work, or another difficult life event. And ask yourself and notice what's coming up for you right now. You may notice fear or anger, disappointment, unmet expectations, sadness, guilt, shame, pain, or numbness. And ask yourself, can I be with this? Can I be with this? Now notice where in your body you may feel these emotions or this emotion. You may feel it with tightness in your forehead or the muscles around your eyes or the clenching of your jaw. Or your raised shoulders, tightness in your throat, or your chest, or your belly. You may feel warmth or heat. and ask yourself, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? You may find that placing your hand on your belly or visualizing your hand on your belly may comfort you as you notice the rise and fall of your belly. Placing your hand on your chest over your heart and feeling the rise and fall of your chest may bring comfort. Or placing one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. You may find that breathing out through pursed lips brings comfort. You may ask yourself, what's coming up right now? Do you notice sadness or fear or anger or shame or guilt? And ask yourself, can I be with this? Can I be with this? And as you are able, nurture yourself with a hand on your belly or a hand on your heart or a hand on your belly and a hand on your heart. And breathe through pursed lips. Breathe through pursed lips. And as we come to the end of this meditation, I'll invite you to say 3 ohms with me, or listen. Om. 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 Now take a few more deep breaths. And when you're ready, come back to the room and open your eyes. I'd like to continue my story of my journey to be more mindful and present in the moment. When I learned about mindfulness and mindfulness meditation, my breath I could always find calm and peace when I started to breathe, and I noticed my breath, and I noticed my senses, I could smell on the in-breath and taste on the out-breath and listen on an in-breath and feel on an out-breath. And I started doing yoga and listening to mindfulness meditation apps. And in the 40 days to a personal revolution, we meditated twice a day, starting at 5 minutes the first week, twice a day, and progressing up to 30 minutes twice a day by the 6th week. And I really felt like I had found the solution to find equanimity, which is the ability to feel calm, even in the presence of difficulty. It didn't matter what situation occurred with my family or colleagues or at work, and I could feel peace and calm. And so I thought I had the solution to the emotional pain that I was going through in that moment of my life. And as we were in family sessions, I didn't even realize this, but we were always asked to check in with our feelings. And I didn't feel anything but happy. And I always opened up to this feeling wheel, which showed the different emotions that someone may be feeling in a moment. And what I didn't realize then is that I was in denial, that felt sadness and anger and disappointment and shame and guilt. And I had no idea. And this was further highlighted when we were on a family retreat and we were talking about some difficult topics. And I thought I was being present and thought I had everything under control. And at the end of the retreat, the counselor wrote a note that said that I'm concerned you may never experience the fullness of an emotional life. And as soon as I read that, I was devastated because I thought I had everything figured out. I thought all I needed to do is meditate and do yoga and I could feel peace and serenity. And what I didn't realize was that I was actually on a spiritual bypass. And I was not in touch with my emotions at all. In fact, I was emotionally ignorant. I had no emotional intelligence at all. And thankfully, I found this course called Awakening the Fearless Heart by Tara Brach. And in it, she taught me that it's okay to feel fear. And she taught me about RAIN, this acronym RAIN that we just took you through. It's the R stands for recognize, the A stands for allow, the I stands for investigate, and the N stands for nurture. And she taught me to recognize when I had felt fear or when I noticed I had fear. And in actuality, it's a special kind of fear that I noticed. So there's one type of fear that's a life and death or limb-threatening fear, as if a saber-toothed tiger was cornering you and you felt fear. And then there's a type of fear that is a false event appearing real, which those letters spell out fear as well, a false event appearing real. And that's anxiety. Like when I'm worried that something's going to happen, it's in my mind and to me it's real. And my body responds to that as if I'm being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. But it's really anxiety. It's not a life or limb threatening problem. It's a false event appearing real. And she taught me she taught me to notice those moments of anxiety that I had. And I realized that I was really anxious about going into the operating room. Every time I went in, to me before this course, I thought I was feeling excitement. And it's true, I was feeling excitement from the release of stress hormones. But I was also, that excitement was in response to my fear of doing what's best for the patient and needing to be perfect in that moment and trying to avoid complications during surgery. And so I had anxiety about these issues. And she taught me it was okay to recognize that I have anxiety in those moments and ask myself, what's coming up for me right now? And recognize what's coming up for me right now. And then ask myself, can I be with it? And the A is allow myself to feel the emotion that I'm noticing. And before my accident, I could always feel it in the pit of my stomach. After my accident, it's been more difficult to notice where I feel my feelings in my body. So I do notice them more in my face, and that's difficult for me to start to recognize. And some of you may still feel these feelings of fear or sadness or anger or shame or guilt. And I do that now living with paralysis, mostly in my face and head and neck. And some of you still may feel it in your body. And ask yourself, can you be with this and allow the feelings to occur? And then she taught me to investigate where in my body I'm noticing the feelings. And then ask myself, what do I need to nurture, which is the N, these feelings, these difficult emotions and feelings? And placing a hand on my belly or hand on my heart or breathing through pursed lips is always helpful for me. And as you heard in the meditation, saying Om also stimulates the soul nerve, or the what we call the vagus nerve, which relaxes and reduces the stress response. And some of you may recognize that the tone is similar to Amen and Om are very similar. And there's science behind pursed lip breathing and belly breathing and saying Om and breathing through pursed lips and the 4-4-4 breathing exercises that we went over earlier, that your mind calms when we do these breathing exercises. And when you place a hand on your belly, your mind calms and your body calms. And I'll give you an example of one time when I was in the operating room and this young 10-year-old girl had a recurrent malignant tumor in her spine. And as I was dissecting it off of the biggest vein in the body called the inferior vena cava, I noticed it was tremendously scarred down to this blood vessel. And in that moment, I had anxiety and I had these thoughts that I was going to poke a hole in the blood vessel and she was going to start to bleed, and that would be very dangerous for her and life-threatening. And I was anxious in that moment. And so I closed my eyes and took a few deep breaths and tried to smell and taste and feel and listen, and put my hand on my belly. And I noticed that I was still anxious and my heart was pounding. And I was still scared that I may do something to harm her. And I reigned in that moment. I recognized it and I allowed it to occur. I investigated where in my body I could feel this fear or anxiety. And then I nurtured myself with my breath. And soon, what seemed like 10 to 20 minutes, and I'm told was less than a few minutes, I was able to feel my heart rate come down and feel my anxiety come down, and I could continue on with the case with a lot less fear and anxiety. Another time that I was able to rein in the operating room was we were operating on a patient who had a very complex spinal deformity, and we were fixing it, and I walked in as my assistants were getting everything ready for me to come in. And I told myself I wanted to come in about 5 minutes. And I think I must have come in about 15 minutes instead of 5 minutes. And when I did come in and I scrubbed in and came up to the table, I noticed that things had been done in a way that I didn't envision, and that's not what I wanted. And I was very upset at myself. And so I could feel the anger that I had for not coming in earlier. And I took a deep breath and started to rain. And my assistant looked up at me, and I think he felt like may have been angry at him. And he said, "Now is not a time to breathe." And I was shocked that someone would talk to me this way in the operating room. And I felt instantaneous rage. And with that rage, I started to rain. I recognized that I was feeling rage and anger, and I allowed it to occur. And I investigated where in my body I felt that rage and anger in the pit of my stomach. And I nurtured myself with my breath. And I continued to breathe until my anger and rage diminished so that we could finish the operation. And another time when I rained was as I was getting into bed, and my caregiver looked at me and she said, "Why does she stay with you?" Talking about my partner. And I said, "What do you mean?" And she spread her arms over me and she said, "Well, look at you." And in that moment, I felt sadness. I recognized that I had sadness, and I allowed that to occur. And I felt the sadness in my eyes, and I nurtured myself with my breath. And I just met with my therapist today, and she asked me if I still feel like emotional ignorance is an issue for me. And I said, "No, I don't think so. I think I have much more emotional intelligence now than I used to." And she agreed with me. And now I believe I'm able to feel and experience the fullness of an emotional life. Thank you. So why don't we take the next few minutes for any questions and answers that you may have? I think in talking about emotions, it's important to know that emotions are part of being human. And when I see my youngest son grow up and notice how present that he is. And when he's sad, he cries. And when he's angry, he lets us know. Or when he's happy, he smiles. And in that state, emotions will last for up to 90 seconds. And then they're present in the next emotion or state. Whereas an adult, I'll ruminate and think and not be able to move on past my thoughts. And my emotions will stay around a lot longer. And when I notice that I'm angry or sad or afraid for longer than 90 seconds, or it keeps recurring in my head, then I know I'm not being present in this moment. And I'm probably lost in my thoughts and worried about the future or dwelling on the past and not actually living in this present moment.